Bear down, Bears fans. Another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer. We got Dionne Miller back in the building.
Hello.
She really is in the building here. I see you preparing for the Chicago Bulls draft, Dionne. What's going on?
Well, I'm honored to be in the room where it's going to happen tonight. I'm just curious exactly what is going to happen. No one really knows what direction this team is taking. And while that makes it somewhat exciting, it also makes it a little bit unnerving as we head towards the draft.
I'm just terrified. I assume there's going to be pretty much the mediocreness that I expect, but there's always hope, right? There's always hope. The part that for today's episode that makes it so interesting that you're already in the room is I want to discuss what other teams around Chicago, and we can talk specifically about the Bulls since you're there, can learn from how the Chicago Bears have dealt with their assets, dealt with the draft, how the Bears have maximized so much. I've looked through a lot of the trades that Ryan Poles has made and different things like that, and it is actually phenomenal to see how well he's done. We also got to talk a little bit about some of the people who are up to get paid. Kevin Fishbane wrote a great article in The Athletic, and want to run through that and look at some of the names that should be prioritized and maybe some that we feel should be put on the back burner. All that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave the 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Appreciate you guys for always showing love to the channel. How have you been, Dionne? It's been a little time since we saw you. 2 weeks? About 2 weeks since we last had you on?
It's been a couple weeks. Summer is flying by. I'm actually leaving on vacation tomorrow, which I'm excited about because when I get back, we'll be about 11 days until training camp starts. So summer is like going to be over in a blink, but I'm embracing it because I'm excited. There's been so much momentum built up around this Bears team. I mean, even still, like when I get a Bears alert about a tweet and it's just somebody, I don't know, DJ Moore in Europe or whatever, like I'm excited. I'm excited to see where they're at and what they're doing. And Caleb Williams going to fashion stuff. It's exciting to see that energy we felt during minicamp and off-season work is carrying over this little bridge of 6-7 weeks before we see them again. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get to the season and see what all of this hype really looks like when they're efforting, getting ready for a real season.
It's so funny you say like summer is flying by. This is the first year, at least I guess maybe it's because it's the last year of my 20s. I literally looked at my wife and I was like, I feel like the years are literally just starting to stack up. Like, this is not fun. Summer used to last forever when I was a kid. And now it's like, we're counting down the days. I'm like, I want Bears football to get here, but give me a little bit of summer. I want to have a little bit of fun.
I know. Well, you're just welcome to adulthood, right? Like you're just getting into it, but I'm telling you, it goes faster and faster as the years go by. So embrace each day as you can.
I love it. As long as I get to have fun throughout the days, it does make it a little bit more bearable. Let's talk a little bit of draft, though, Dionne. We've seen the Chicago Bears do a really good job at drafting over the last couple of years, and a lot of people feel confident about the draft that we had this year as well. When you look around the city, I mean, there's a lot of teams here that it feels abysmal here, and you're sitting in the room of one of those where there's a question on, okay, when is hope going to come? Is hope going to come in this draft? Is hope going to come in the future? What have you seen that the Bears have done that you feel maybe some other teams really need to look at and say, if you could take one thing away, this is what you need to take away draft-wise?
The first thing that comes to mind is to not be afraid of popular opinion, not be afraid to make moves because you feel like it's going to improve your roster. I think back to Roquan Smith. I think about Eddie Jackson no longer being here. Some of those big names that were so popular and everybody's like, oh, they're like foundational pieces. And Ryan Poles was like, no, we're going in a different direction. And I think that's what I would love to hear from the Bulls tonight or see from the Bulls tonight, that yes, trading Alex Caruso may have been a moment or something, but it doesn't feel like it's that different, right? Like let's not keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I think Ryan Poles made the moves to make things different, to make it feel different, to make the roster look different. And even in the midst of the process of a lot of losing, they weren't afraid to lose those games. They weren't afraid to rebuild in the way that it was necessary to make them a contender consistently. That's what they're after. And I think a lot of teams in the city need to kind of embrace that, not be afraid to say, look, we are rebuilding. And I feel like so many people are afraid to say that. No, you're literally rebuilding. I think the Blackhawks are doing a good job with that.
Yeah.
They're literally rebuilding, and they're trying to do it through the draft. Ryan Poles made no qualms about it. He was going to rebuild through the draft and through trading and free agency, and he has done that. That roster looks starkly different heading into this season than it did just a couple of years ago. And I think that's what I would encourage the Bulls front office to do tonight. This is not be afraid to make it different.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And for me, when I look at what the Bulls have done historically and how the Bears changed, because the Bears were very similar historically. The Roquan Smith one is the first move that I really look at, a trade that I think is one of Ryan Poles' best trades, not just because of the things that you were able to get back from it. Yes, you were able to get back some nice pieces that you were able to use in future draft capital. But to me, when I look at how there's a value placed on Roquan Smith. He's a phenomenal player. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. There's no question about it. But can you replace his production? That's how I feel Ryan Poles went into it. And he looks at, okay, the system that we're going to run here, Roquan is not going to have the same value that he would have somewhere else. Let's send him away. Let's find a way to replace his value. They brought in TJ Edwards, and I thought replaced Roquan Smith's value to a T, did everything I would have expected to see from Roquan Smith. And on top of that, you were able to get, for the money that you spent, TJ Edwards. The one thing that I would love for the Bulls to take away that they just haven't, and the Bears were this way in the past. I feel like the Cubs have been this way. And we know, I don't know what the White Sox have been. I have no answers for that.
No one does.
Don't overvalue your assets.
Yeah.
The Bulls have missed on, like, when you look at Alex Caruso, the package you could have gotten for him halfway through the season versus now, I'm fine with getting Josh Giddey back, but it's not the best package that was available. I look at Zach LaVine to the Knicks, right? Like, that was a trade package that was like, it was basically the Mikal Bridges package minus 2 picks.
Right.
You missed on that. Oh, you could have got a better player, by the way, also in RJ Barrett back. And they got Bogdanovich on the other end. So don't overvalue your assets. And I feel like we have such a tough time, not just as the teams in the city, but as fans in the city as well.
Oh, you're exactly right. And I think the front office wants to feel like they've invested in the names on their roster and that it's going to work. And we put this together and it's going to work. We're confident it's going to work. And sometimes you have to say it isn't working. I think Ryan Poles can objectively look at some of the things that he's done, and maybe we'll see that changes. The first name that comes to mind, obviously, is Velus Jones-Jr., and he could objectively look at this and say, all right, this is not working anymore. And I think that's what a lot of front office people need to know and need to not be afraid of that as well, is just saying, look, I know you have an emotional connection because you built this roster, but if it's not working, you have to admit that. And sometimes that means not overvaluing the assets that you feel like are so valuable to you, or even the city feels is so valuable. You have to be able to deter from that.
No, and 100%. And I think the fact that when I look at why the Bears have gotten good, it's because they went away from those old styles of thinking. I think the one thing that I have to commend, right? I feel like so often everybody wants to pour on the McCaskies, right? Oh, they haven't done this, they haven't built this. We actually need to commend George. George went through one regime.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know what I'm doing. And then went out and got the guys that knew what they were doing and moved on. We haven't seen that from a McCaskey family. We haven't seen them finally go, I don't think I know the right way to run a team. Let me get somebody in here that knows the right way to run a team. And that's why we've seen the Bears all of a sudden change their philosophies, change how they've attacked the draft. With the Bulls, it feels completely the opposite. With the White Sox, 100%, right? And it's the same guy running both of those, where it still feels like we're trying to run things like we were running them when we had the greatest player of all time in 1990.
Yeah.
And you don't have that guy.
Right. And you're right to mirror the two between the White Sox and the Bulls and to understand the connection that they have. I mean, it starts at the top. It starts at leadership. I feel like so many times we've been questioning with both franchises, who's running what? Like, who's in charge of what? Who's making who's ultimately making these decisions? And I do agree, commending the McCaskies and George for putting the pieces in place that they have right now and really allowing them to do their jobs well.
Yeah, it's showing to me that showed growth. That's where it started at. The team changed completely. The mindset changed. The philosophy changed when George finally, like, we heard him. Everybody wanted to make fun of him too. And he's like, I'm not a football guy.
Right.
Like, I make money. I show up. I'm a fan. I want to see him win. I'm not running the day-to-day, guys. I don't know how to tell you this. And the fact that you finally saw him take his hand out of the pot, I think that that was something masterful that really set them down this path. Let me ask you this, though. When you look at kind of what the Bears have done draft-wise, of course, Caleb Williams is the most recent and the most exciting. What has been the one move that you've seen the Bears make in the draft that you feel really set things in motion to this point, that really got things going for them?
I mean, what got them going was not being afraid to make that move to get DJ Moore. And I mean, no one knew that that would mean that they were going to be selecting #1 overall this year and have access to Caleb Williams the way that they did. No one knew that that was coming, but it looks like a stroke of genius right now. And again, it comes from having the confidence in what you're doing in the direction you want to go, and identifying the needs that you have and the way that you can build your team and build the roster that you're not only proud of, but that can compete on the field is making a big move like that and bringing in somebody who has an immediate impact like DJ Moore does, but then also having the complementary pieces that you got in the draft picks to set you up for future success. You have to have more than a single season vision. I think that is a big deal. And Ryan Poles has done a really good job with that, with the draft. I feel like that obviously set everything in motion that allowed the Bears to have first round picks. I mean, we went through how many seasons where we didn't have a first round pick because of the moves that the GM was making. And I don't think that will ever happen again. Like, you're not going to get an impact player that like you can get it right there. Like right there, we're going to get Caleb Williams, who's going to start week 1. Like it's right there. And you just he didn't have to overthink it. Right. And I feel like that move, the trade for DJ Moore, obviously is the culmination of like, okay, this is the direction we're going. And I feel like that was the confident step he took. And now each one, he just gains confidence in what he's doing because he's seeing it come together right in front of him.
When you look at that trade, I've maybe it's because I'm a Bears fan, maybe it's because I'm a little bit younger, and I'm very bullish on that trade. To me, there's a big if the Chicago Bears get their franchise quarterback, their first ever franchise quarterback out of it, I think that is the greatest fleece of a trade in all time. I know everybody's going to bring up the Herschel Walker trade because of how many Hall of Famers come from it, how many Super Bowls come from it. But the Dallas Cowboys were always a team that kind of like, they went through some tough seasons, but like they were a team that was in Super Bowls. They were a team that was competitive. They were always a team that was able to go out there and be in the playoffs. Ryan Poles may give Chicago something they've never had. Like we're still quoting Sid Luckman's stats every Sunday, and it irritates my soul. I think it may be the greatest fleece of a trade of all time in my mind if Caleb Williams turns into the franchise piece.
And well, because you say if, I can't say anything is the greatest yet, but I do think it's slowly building into like if he's able to, again, because we still have to say if it plays out the way that they want it to. Yeah, it's in that conversation. It truly is, because it changes an entire franchise in the direction of what we're doing and the history of the first franchise in the NFL, right? Like it changes so much around a Bears team that has been so beloved for so long and followed for so long by so many people around the world. Like it would change so much about who they are and who they've been, and it alters history. I mean, that would make it the greatest in my mind.
It's so funny because like you think about we think about the Chiefs now and it's like dominant dynasty, Andy Reid, phenomenal head coach. And I always think about like, I never thought about the Chiefs growing up. Like I never like once was like, oh yeah, the Chiefs are a good football team. Like I'm really worried about what they're gonna. You always knew like they were solid. You knew like, all right, like it's a good team, but like there were years where they were just terrible for years. But like you said, one pick changes everything. Now we think about them as this dominant franchise that we can't see falling off for the next 10 years.
Right. But it comes with, again, coaching. It comes with having the right personnel. It comes with having a direction that you're going in and committing to it. I mean, I remember when the Chiefs also ran in a division with like the Broncos, right? Like it was just, they weren't in the conversation the way that they are now, right? So you're exactly right.
It's so funny looking back on some of these franchises and seeing where they are now. The Bears I look back on, but I was going through and just looking at some of the trades when I was looking at everything. It was just like, man, like there were some franchises that were literally just like you just knew. Like I think about the fact that Arch Manning was like, you told his son, you're not going there. Like that's a franchise that will kill your career. You're not going there. And they get Phillip Rivers instead, and it's like, the trajectory of that franchise, they haven't won a Super Bowl, but like I don't think you think of LA as like the franchise that will kill your career anymore. And they were San Diego, of course, at the time. Like it really is one pick that can change everything. And that's why when I look at tonight's draft for the Bulls, I keep hearing it's a weak draft, it's a bad draft. Don't you just get the best case scenario. And I'm just like, you're not in a position where you can take that luxury.
No, not in a position. And you're right, though, about, I mean, I've even heard Ryan Poles say this, that it's like all these little decisions, you never know how much of an impact that they're going to have.
Yeah.
And like, I think tonight could be that for the Bulls. Like, you can make a decision now and choose a direction. Hopefully we'll see that. Who knows? Who knows?
We'll see. I'm all in favor of trading back and taking Terrence Shannon Jr. We'll see what they end up doing.
I don't hate that.
Listen, I like the guy. That's my guy. I'm a big Illinois guy, though. Me and Jordan Sherwood will be very excited if he ends up in a Bulls jersey. Let's keep this thing moving along. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. You guys know what to do, man. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think the Bears have done that you want to see Chicago teams? We focused in on the Bulls really, but Chicago teams around the city really take advantage of, because it's not a great, we're in an entire month of we're an entire summer of baseball doesn't matter. It sucks. I thank God for the sky.
Right? Yes, and amen. I totally agree.
Another team who figured out. Now, listen, I do miss Kai. I'm not gonna lie, but I love Angel Reese. I love Camila Cardoso. I think that they were like, "Hey, Ryan, what you do? Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. We appreciate you."
Right? Yes, they get it. There's an energy around them. They are fun to watch. Yes.
As Angel Reese said, I'm a dog. Yeah. Let's keep this thing moving along. Though, let's talk about some of the free agents and the players who will soon be up for contract extensions. We got this article from Kevin Fishbane of The Athletic, and there's some interesting names on this list. He breaks it down into a couple of different categories, and I'm gonna lay it out to you like this, Dionne. I'll say the name. We'll kind of lay out some of the things that are around the player right now, and I'll ask you, if you're the GM, do you get a contract done or not? He starts it off with Keenan Allen. Even without a full season last year, he lays out with Justin Herbert, still a 1,200 yards receiver in his age 31 season. This is a player that the Chicago Bears, of course, went out and traded for this offseason. He's somebody who it seems like is going to be a big part of your young quarterback's development in this first year. But would you extend Keenan Allen beyond this year to stay with the Chicago Bears, knowing there's other contracts that have to be signed, knowing there's other people that you want to have on this team long-term, and knowing that the part that a lot of people aren't talking about, because you traded for Keenan Allen, if he walks, you get the comp pick that the Chargers would have gotten. I believe it will end up being a 3rd at best or a 4th round pick at worst.
Well, again, another tiny decision that sets your franchise up for positive things in the future, right? I think it's too soon to say whether they make that a priority. We need to see how he fits with this offense. But also, is this not why you drafted Rome Odunze, right? Isn't that why you have him in that room with him to learn from him and to be that number 2 target behind DJ Moore as quickly as possible? I think so. I think Keenan Allen has a lot left. I think he proved that last year. If he can stay healthy, he can be so elite still and have such value. It's too soon for me to say that they need to make that a priority. I think they need to enjoy what they have right now and see how he connects with Caleb and how that looks in a real live game atmosphere. Love everything about Keenan Allen. Love what he's saying. Love the way he works. All of it, the leadership he's instantly providing in that wide receiver room, but for the entire locker room. So we'll see. We'll see.
It's for me when I look at it, and listen, I love Keenan. I'm glad that he's here. I hope that he, goes on and has another 1,200 yard season through 13 games. It'd be phenomenal to see from him. But here's my thing. 1, I get a comp pick on the other side of it. 2, I know he thinks he's still as good as Justin Jefferson.
Yes. And he wants that.
Means he's looking for. He just signed with Clutch as well. We got one Clutch athlete in the city already, and Zach LaVine he's still here as of now. I haven't gotten a Woj bomb.
Right.
I don't know if he's here long term, Dionne. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I mean, you don't say out loud that the wide receiver market was just reset. You don't say that out loud, unless you're looking to be in that conversation of the highest paid. So you're exactly right.
We'll see what ends up happening with Keenan Allen. Somebody else who's available and somebody that we have a little bit of a track record with here in Chicago is Teven Jenkins coming into this season. He's a serious name, right? Because the biggest part about Teven Jenkins' game that you worry about has nothing to do with his actual game. He's one of the best offensive linemen, if not the best offensive lineman when he's on the field. I think that he is a dominant player. I would love to see him on the right side of that line. But the biggest problem with Teven Jenkins has been the injury history, and the fear that I have with a guy like Teven Jenkins is I remember that we just knew we had to re-sign why am I blanking on his name now? Offensive lineman right before this regime. I can't. Kyle Long. We knew we had to re-sign Kyle Long. We knew we had to re-sign Kyle Long. And we did. And we got Kyle at a little bit of a discount, but Kyle was a big part of our team. Kyle was a major part of what you wanted to do on your offensive line, and he was often injured. When he was on the field, he was one of the best offensive linemen on the field, but he wasn't on the field enough. When you look at the Teven Jenkins situation, even if he has a healthy season, are you taking the risk that maybe this was just his one healthy season, but because he had that, you got to re-sign him?
I think you do. I think if he stays healthy and is dominant, because last year, that's the one thing. Like, if you're watching him, he was a difference maker up front, big time. I mean, and if he could stay healthy, that's something that you can build around, I would think. And he's young enough that you could build around it. And he has talked so much about changing things in the offseason, making sure he's ready for the season. So I think you do. I think you make him somewhat of a priority, because what the biggest question marks, we just talked about it the last time you and I were together, like the biggest question mark surrounding this team before training camp is the offensive line. If you can feel good about Teven Jenkins and feel good about you've got him solidified, I think that is important. I think it's really important for the development of Caleb Williams.
Are you re-signing if he gives you a season like last year? Is there a threshold of games you need to see before you're like, all right, listen, if you play like 12 games, we got to bring you back because that's 12 games that could be impactful? Or are you kind of like, nah, bro, you got to get like 15 games in this season before I think about re-signing you?
I think that proving the durability of 15 games would be go a long way in contract negotiations to say, look, he knows that he wasn't prepared for a full season earlier in his career. He's made changes and he's going to continue to build on those and then be available for even longer. I think that is part of that contract talk that they would have to have. I think for the durability of it, 15 minimum, I feel like. But
I hear you. And it's tough because I don't want people to think that this is like Teven's not keeping himself in shape or he's not like Teven's honestly doing everything that he possibly can. He talks to us about it in the media room. He's like, I'm doing like yoga, I'm doing Pilates. He's doing everything that he can to keep his body healthy. And sometimes your body just doesn't work with you. It was my fear when we drafted him and I found out he started out his career hurt, because I was like, he's a big dude, man. Big dudes usually don't get healthier as their career goes forward. So the hope is that he can stay healthy. To me, when I look at Teven Jenkins, though, not to say I wouldn't re-sign him, but I have a hard time re-signing a guy that I have to put so much around. And you don't know if he's going to be out there. Right. Not to say you can just throw him away. I'm not saying that Karan Amageji's all of a sudden our left guard of the future and all of that. But when you're talking about like the 5 guys that are on their front line, those are guys that you expect, like, okay, I need you to be out there 15 games minimum, and we can work in a couple of games here and there. It's tough to go into every single season and say, we expect him to miss 6 games.
Right. Or anticipating it. You're exactly right. Or making sure you have the depth there because you know it's going to happen. I mean, it's hard to not feel that way based on history, but I think that we can give him the benefit of the doubt at this point, because when he is in there like he was last year, he was so impactful. And if he can be that way for longer, I think there's reason to invest further in him.
Or at least just pick the part of the season at the end of the year, right? Like, if you're going to be hurt, like do it last year, right? First 4 games, take first 4 games off. We'll get it going. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
Let us know your thoughts on Teven in the comments below. I like how Kevin breaks this down, because now he talks about contracts running through 2025. The number 1 name on this list is obvious. It's the name that you mentioned earlier about the biggest trade that the Bears have made. And I think the biggest name you have to re-sign, to me, before you re-sign anybody else on this team, DJ Moore is the number 1 on this list. We know that the Bears want him to be a part of this future. Right now, his contract ranks 17th among receivers based on an average salary. And of course, if Jamar Chase, whenever Jamar Chase does get his deal done, not if Jamar Chase gets his deal done, he'll now be 18th. I think that he's the level of wide receiver that you're going to be talking about a pretty significant pay raise for him to remain in Chicago. And I think he may want to remain in Chicago because if Caleb turns into what we think, he'll be the first consistent quarterback that he's had in his career. How do you get a deal done with DJ Moore? I'm not even going to ask, do you want to re-sign DJ Moore? How do they get a deal done with DJ Moore? And do you get it done before the season versus maybe the end of the season?
I'd like to see it get done before the season, just because you heard Matt Eberflus say during minicamp, like he's our best player, right? Like he's the guy who sets the tone for what they're doing on the field, for being at everything, his commitment to the team. I think it's what he's done on the field is one thing. His ability to help every quarterback he's had, to find success with every different quarterback he's had. I think that's just who he is. He works relentlessly to make that happen, and he'll do that again with Caleb Williams. I think it is someone that you want to have here, not only for what he can do for the rest of his career, but also what he can do for the guys who are coming in, for the leadership in the locker room. When you have a quarterback who's 22 years old, yes, he's very mature, but when you have that, you still need a voice like DJ Moore. And I think they're finding that more and more valuable as they continue to rebuild this roster. I think he's someone you invest in. I do. I think it'd be foolish not to.
Yeah. And the part for me, I think that I love about DJ is like, when I look at Caleb, I see a excited leadership in him. When I see Keenan Allen, I see that same excited leadership. When I see Rome Odunze, I see that same excited leadership. The part that last year with Justin Fields and DJ Moore, that it was like, all right, everybody's too calm. Like maybe we need to get a little bit of urgency.
Right.
I think that works in the Bears' favor moving forward with a guy like DJ Moore, because DJ is going to come in there and he's going to be like, hey, what are we doing? Everybody take a breath real quick, right? Like he's always very even keel whenever you hear him on the field, whenever you see him in the post-game press conferences and stuff like that. Like I think that those are the best things about DJ that make him so incredibly valuable to this team.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree with you. And I think that, like I was saying, that like that veteran leadership, that component that you can't teach that. It just comes with experience. He has that. He has so much of that, and he wants to win so badly. And I think that if they have a successful season for him, and he is a reason that they're winning, like how do you not want to keep that around? I just think it's so valuable.
Yeah, 27 years old. Love everything DJ brings. Let's finish it out here, Dionne, because I think that this is the best name that maybe has gone a little bit underpaid throughout this time. TJ Edwards also on the list. I talked about the impact that he had last season. I mean, basically completely replicating Roquan Smith's numbers. We know how dominant of a linebacker Roquan was out in Baltimore this season. Seeing TJ really come on in his hometown, I thought was very interesting. I mean, when you look at him, he was tied for third in sacks. He was tied for fourth in tackles among the league, second in QB hits, tied for first in interceptions, tied for second in passes defended. Do you get a deal done with TJ Edwards, and how much of a raise is he going to get? I think he's right now at $6.5 million per year, tied for the 22nd among all off-ball linebackers.
I think you bring it. Well, here's the thing. They like the local aspect. I think they love that he grew up a Bears fan, and this is in his blood. I know that they love that. And I also think his impact on the field, his immediate impact on a defense that is hoping to be top 5, right? Like that he deserves to be paid. I think they move him into like at least the top 15, right? You'd have to if he's making that kind of a difference again this year and filling that hole that they needed filled by Roquan Smith's absence. I mean, I think he was the smart investment there. I think that's something they would want to keep around.
I think the funny thing with a lot of Bears fans is you keep hoping that you're in this space that we're in where there's just unlimited cap space. You can do whatever you want. But realistically, the goal is to have your team set.
Yeah.
And have a bunch of high-paid guys on the team with a good influx of rookies that are continuing to grow, that you can either say eventually to the older guys, all right, appreciate you being here. You go find your next team, or to the young guys, we wish you had worked out a little bit better, you know, have a nice life. We're going to trade you over here. So it's okay to get to this point. I think TJ Edwards has to become one of the higher paid players on your team, because I think he's that important. He's consistent. You can always count on him to do his job. That's something that you don't take lightly, especially when you bring in a younger player or somebody different, because they may not have that experience. They may not have that headspace of just like, at a minimum, I'm doing my job, but on top of that, I can be elite in these moments.
Yeah, and the benefit, Pat, of having a quarterback under a rookie contract is that they can make these investments now, and they don't have to pay their quarterback for a couple of years, right? So I think that you're right, that investing in him is wise, but they have the capacity to do it. And it goes back to what we started this with, right? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to pay guys who deserve to be paid. Don't be afraid to invest in.
That's the biggest thing for me. Don't be, and like, that's such a great way to say it. Don't be afraid. Like, the number one thing we keep hearing with the Josh Giddey, going back to the Bulls stuff, is like, well, the Bulls are going to have to pay him if he's good.
Why is that a bad thing?
Okay, I'm happy.
I'm happy too. Same. Yeah.
Was he good? Like, he's a 22-year-old player now, and he's good. Perfect. That's what we hoped for. We won.
Yep, we win. Yep, you're right.
Dionne, we appreciate you tuning in with us as always. We thank you for coming on the show. Know you got to run. There's a lot going on. Let's hope the Chicago Bulls make a few moves, and that you being there brings us fortune in this draft.
I have no control, but thank you.
It's whispering AK's ear. What you were gonna do, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Like, whatever you were gonna do, don't do that. We appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love as always. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Make sure to tap in with the article over on The Athletic as well with Kevin Fishbane. Couple more names in that article that were really good that we weren't able to get to. So make sure to check that out as well. For Dionne Miller, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. Peace.